Welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on Django apps. We're going to continue on my journaling application, and my plan, as you can see from this GitHub issue, or maybe you can't see, but is to really simplify the signup of my app. We've got a project that I've been working on a long time. The email flow is a classic, or sorry, the signup flow is a classic like email and password combination. But I want to make some changes to make that really as simple as can be for the app. And so we're going to work through that. And maybe also get rid of like a kind of complex dependency in my application. It's going to be fairly involved, I think, in order to change this. And I've not done this before, so there will be some learning on both of our parts to get an understanding of what's doing here. But I'll outline a design for this at the beginning, and then we'll actually get to some coding. But you're welcome to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. I don't know why. Get out of here. Just updated this. And we'll then get to the actual project. So, sorry, my terminal is not where I wanted to be. Make sure this is up to date. But we're not going to use this right away. So, but maybe we'll do it for just some design stuff. I have some documentation folder, and we can sketch out the design that we're going to need for this. So let's create a new file, and we'll call this sign up, or yeah, sign up. That's fine. And then we'll say this is sign up and login. So what is it we really want to do for this app? So I guess I should orient you if you've never joined the stream before. This is the app right here, Journey Inbox. It's a service that works via email as the primary interface, where you're writing a journal, but you're responding to emails, and that's the way that your entries into your journal get recorded every time you respond to one of these daily emails that come out. So there's actually not a lot here to do on the application, but what I want to have possible is that currently, if you go here and you go to the sign up flow, you can see that there's an email and password screen. I don't want that. Instead, I want to have, and there's also a difference here where there's also a login screen. So if you are an existing user, you can log in with your email and password, and if you are a new user, you can go through the sign up flow. But that is not what I desire. Instead, I want a, what should I say? This is should be a single stream sign up or login. And the way we're going to make that happen, and importantly, no password. So that's the only way that can work, right? If you have a password, then there's no way you can sign up without it with the expectation of a password. So how are we going to do this? What I want to do instead is make the sign up and the login flow work via email, which makes sense because this whole app, this whole service is about using email heavily to your advantage. That's most of the interface. You actually spend very little time on the web, but I want the web part to be not a burden. So we'd be able to sign up and get logged in that way. So sign in, or we'll just say log in via, we'll call them magic links is the term. We're going to use a project called Django Sesame, appropriately named, I think. Let's see, Sesame, like open sesame as in kind of magic. That's where the naming kind of comes from. We'll get to this in a minute, but that's the project that I'm thinking of using based off what I've seen. So we will use a magic link, and what a magic link does is it kind of gives you the ability of whoever holds the link is able to like log in on your behalf. There's ways to make sure that they have expiration on the links so that they don't work indefinitely, which will be kind of important if those things are floating around. But the philosophy here is actually supported by, or I first saw it via someone on X, and it's this person right here. His name is Peter Levels, and he talks about the ways that he builds apps. And you can see he has a bunch of applications that are doing quite well for him. That's pretty surprising. So he's making pretty good money per month, although that's pure revenue. It doesn't necessarily convey profit. Anyway, he made some interesting points. I listened to him on a podcast with Lex Friedman, and was talking about how he designs his systems and wants to make things easy. And he's just a little countercultural. I don't know if that's the right word. He goes against some certain conventions. And so he brought up this idea of like making it super easy to get into an application and try something out. And the way that he did this was like getting rid of the sign-up process. But along the way, he explained his logic, because if you are in web development long enough and you think about sign-up flows and those sort of things, you will hear security people say like, you got to have certain password requirements, you got to do this, you got to do that, and not encouraging the path where you would put these magic links into email. And the philosophy around that is like, well, what happens if somebody gets to your email? And Peter's point that I think he made in that Lex Friedman podcast was like, well, if somebody's got to your email, you're already toast, because email is like where so many people keep so much private and confidential stuff. So as long as you have some expiration on these links, like emails are pretty, you can generally depend that it's going to be somebody's most secure area if they're actually conscientious about protecting their private data at any level. So we want to use login via magic links, and these links will essentially have some kind of token that will say, for this user, if you log into your browser, we will take this link and create a session for the user, put it in the browser, so that you're then logged in from there on. So that's the part about that. And the nice benefit of this is like, you don't need a password in that model. If you get this temporary link, then you can do that. The other thing that we want to do in this process that is really important is that we want to extend the session to minimize the number of these logins that are needed. So extend the session, and I want to do it to essentially the max that's going to be allowed for most browsers. So I think that's generally to like a full year. So extend session to 365 days. This is not the default in Django. And again, this is one of these things that conventionally you'll hear people say like, what, don't make sessions super long because people could be logged in somewhere. And to the point to that is like, well, if you're logging in a library and you leave something around that's important to you, kind of shame on you. What are you doing? Like there is some responsibility that should be on the user. So that's the philosophy here of what we're going to do is extend the Django session. So the session cookie, as long as it's on the browser, will continue to work. So we avoid the whole sign-in flow, and you get that nice experience that you get on a lot of apps these days, frankly. In spite of this guidance being out there of make short sessions, look at some of the apps that exist. Like I can't think of the last, on some of these major apps, I cannot think of the last time that I had to log in to some of them. There are certain exceptions, like GitHub seems to log in every couple of weeks, but I don't know. Others, like off the top of my head, X, LinkedIn, YouTube, these things seem to go on indefinitely. So I think that they have viewed maybe the same philosophy there of like, it is really on you to be responsible about where you're logging in and how you're cleaning up and stuff. So these are sort of the main elements that I want to incorporate into this design stuff. And what we're going to get out of this is a bunch of simplification. There will be, let's talk about some benefits. There's no passwords. I think that's a benefit. Implied by that means like no password reset flows. All of that goes away. So if you're the owner of that email account that has the account, you can just ask for another login link. You get a new link and you go. So that's nice. Other benefits. It means that there's not multiple places to get into the site. What I mean by that is right now, like even just in the demonstration of the current Journey inbox, I had the main page, which had to take you to a sign up page, and then there was a login page, and you needed both of these in order to actually allow new users and existing users to come into the site. By getting rid of this flow and having a single entry point with these magic links, we can just have the login, we can have it right here on the main page, put a form, basically be like, I think what this will look like is we will have, right after this, we'll say, put everything that's needed to do the kind of the click wrap stuff, which if you don't know what that means, it's this comment right here of telling people that they agree to terms of service and privacy policy. So we'll have a little box that will be kind of a call out box that says, drop your email here. If you want to continue, we'll send you a link. And so we're going to essentially make an account for somebody if they're just entering their email. And that should really simplify the process considerably. So there are potential drawbacks that I was thinking about. One is that there's potentially a lot more emails. So I'm on a free plan for SendGrid. There is a potential that this could have could run into scenarios where I'm using way more emails because people just kind of very casually drop in an email. I did also think about this would be bad with bots. Like bots could be a problem. So there may be things that we need to do. Now, I'm not really worried about it at this stage because this app is not a hugely popular app. Like I talk about it on stream. I don't do a huge amount of marketing, so it's not really a big deal. I don't think it's going to be something that is being hit a ton by bots on the internet. I could be wrong though. There are all sorts of script kiddies out there, so maybe there's some simple stuff that we have to put in to prevent access. There's also, I bet we could go, in fact, let's do this right now. I'm curious to see if these sites from Peter, what the flow is. So let's do a little bit of just inspection on this person who seems to say that this is the way to sign up. I'm curious how many if he does that for all of his sites or just a few. I mean, clearly he's already done that here. So this is what the kind of thing I'm talking about. The user experience ends up being so nice is that you have your pitch and you make it as low friction as possible for people to sign up. We might even steal some of this terminology. Yeah, this guy he's pretty impressive with what he's able to do as a one-man team on a very small system. So, and you're right, Ribeiro is he does stuff like on a one file PHP server. I mean, it's wild. So there's that one. So that kind of confirms this pattern. He does offer, say, like the other thing to do would be like social auth, which he just picks one, does Google. I think he goes for like the 80-20 kind of rule here. Here, wow, these are extremely similar. So photo AI looks like it's for people. Interior AI looks like it's for interiors. And it doesn't have the social auth here. So there's a very clear call to action. So there's not even a sign up. I like this. If you already have an account, I don't know how he gets away with in terms of privacy policy. Maybe he doesn't care. I'm not really sure. Oh, this is interesting. As you scroll down, floats in the footer. Interesting. So just kind of seeing what kind of things we can discover. Got plans and pricing. That's probably stuff you do after. What happens if you click this? He has no mention of privacy or terms of service. That's really curious. Oh, it just sends you back to the top. What is he doing? Privacy? Nope. All right, Peter. You're very unconventional there. So I'm a little bit more paranoid than Peter is, perhaps. So I'll probably put some kind of indication of if you already have an account, we'll log you in. If you don't have an account, you agree to the terms of service, something like that. So we looked at those two. They were very similar. Wow, he's got a pattern. That's cool. So call to action, single email. What's on? And it looks like this key just keep infinite scrolling. So definitely no bottom here. This is remote. Okay, searching. He's got login. This one has maybe a bit more. Maybe he got some stuff. Okay, so maybe this is an older site that he has or something, where he went with a different pattern. I don't know. Not sure really what's going on there, but interesting nonetheless. And then, oh, that's his main, like, his own personal site. Okay, cool. So that's just an example of like the kind of stuff we will be doing. And this, I think we're now ready. Like, so hopefully I've made the pitch of like what this is, the things that we want to put in there, and let's talk a little bit about like implementation. So there's like two layers. Well, there's multiple layers to this. One is that I want to use Django Sesame, and which Django Sesame for the magic links. And I need to figure out how to make the sign up login page all one thing. So we'll do that. So we need a probably like a custom, and I'm gonna even like, I normally hate this where it's like login and sign up are two separate things, but they will conflate terms. So I think I might call it sign in, and just have it be both. So in counter to my normal conventions, that's I think what we'll need. The other thing about this is that currently, if I look at my app, whoops, settings, wrong way. Sorry, been a hot minute. We are using Django all-auth, and so all-auth has all of this stuff. Most of this will just go away when we update the URL section. So all-auth comes as like one chunk here. So getting rid of it from the UI will be pretty easy. We'll just remove this line, and then we can also we will need to remove some templates and other things like that, or we'll recycle bits of that where we can. But that's the bit here that is, well, so we have to remove all auth. But the harder part about this project is that there is an implication of account migration. I don't know what this will mean. Maybe what we probably want to do is make it so that I think as soon as the login feature is available, it should work for any existing user account. Like that shouldn't be a problem. So that we'll be able to have a way to set the session there. The only thing that we might want to do in addition is do, let's see, like invalidate existing passwords. So there's no possible way to do that. Although now that I say that, maybe I'll just leave it, because there is still an aspect of this site where I need to be able to get in as the administrator. And so I'm going to still need a password. So it's fine that for other accounts, like anybody that's not me, not the admin, I can do something that will, with the new user account, user record created, I can basically set an unusable password. I think there's even like a Django API to set that password. In fact, let's go take a quick peek. I'm just curious. I'm pretty sure it's there. So we should have Django 5.1 docs. They should be available. And unusable password. Come on. Set unusable password. So there's a way that you can essentially And it's the idea typically is like you want to make it so that a previously used password in the system or a user account is no longer able to access that. A use case for that might be like perhaps you have like someone who's abusing your system, and as a way to say like, no, you can't come back in. We're going to mark your password as invalid, delete any active sessions that you have from the sessions database, and then prevent you from logging in the future. Sadly, this is a thing that has to be done. Like I've had to do this at my day job when on our Django monolith that we had, there was a whole system to essentially put people on a deny list. You'd be surprised. So I work in an industry that does like telemedicine, so visits with doctors. And there are people that surprisingly show up to these telemedicine visits and do just obscene things that the doctors then witness that then have to be dealt with. It's really sad state of the fact that there are folks out there like that, but that's just reality. So your system might have some kind of abuse scenario that you have to think about, and the set unusable password is a tool for handling that. So there's also, let's see what they say. Yeah. So this isn't the same as having a blank password. Okay, so they're saying that you might want to do this if you want to avoid having anybody try and log in with this mechanism, and would rather have them do something else like use LDAP or some kind of SSO authentication, something like that. So that's that. Anyway, that's the things that we need to consider is like in this removal process, we need to make sure that everybody who previously was logging in can still log in. And I think that should be fine once we have this login page. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. So how do I want to start? First thing to do is probably read a little bit about Django Sesame to make sure that we have a good understanding of what's going to be there. Then for the actual like flow, let's make a note or two about the custom sign-in page. So we're basically going to do an upsert on the user. So if a user doesn't exist, create one. And then if they do exist, well, either way, so make a magic link for the user. And email the link. That's sort of the whole flow. And then redirect to a check your email kind of page. That's, I think, what we need to do for the sign-in page. Okay, so, but we need to look at, have at least a basic understanding of how this magic link process works, and take a look at Django Sesame. So here we are with Django Sesame. Perhaps it's better to read the official documentation site rather than just the README. Well, let's go over here and see what they say. So frictionless authentication, that's what we're after. They're again, there's a lot of hand waving that says like, please be careful with what you're doing. Make wise decisions. So we are going to make decisions where that these links will be available to an email. And again, I'm going to be okay with that because of my belief on how important emails are, or an email client is to somebody, that people actually secure these things. So you get a link that has this ability to get like this Sesame token. Then it authenticates the user and creates a session. Looks like we don't have any support problems. We are definitely on the right things. We're going to use contrib auth. We were doing that anyway. So we will install this, and then what we need to do is add to the authentication backends. I think we might already have an authentication backend set up. We do. We have one for the all auth stuff. So this is going to come out, and we will replace it with the Sesame one. We need to leave the model backend in because that's what will allow the Django admin page to continue to work. So that's vital that be there. So that essentially what happens is like a chain. So the authentication process will go through each backend and see like, can I do this? Can I do this? And if none of them work, it will then reject. So we've got this setup of setting the auth backend. And then we've got, what do we have? So there looks like you set up a login view from Sesame. And then there's a utility to make the query string. Oh, interesting. Okay. So they call it Sesame login, but we can certainly just be like, this will be our sign-in page. And we'll use the login view, maybe. So we'll probably do like a post to this or something. Or even, actually, I guess it would just be a GET request. So somebody's going to click this, they're going to get a GET request, and then we'll redirect them back to the logged in index page. So we have login by email, that's what we want, an attractive option on mobile, and we should set the Sesame max age to some number. So I'm probably not going to go as short as 10 minutes. That's crazy. Yeah, that's not necessary. I've probably set to like an hour or something like that. So authenticate links, for example, you can generate a report offline. Yeah, okay. I don't need to be convinced on use cases. Then here's the comment about security. And it's this. Whoever obtains an authentication token is able to authenticate to your website. But it's going to email. It's the only place we're going to send these links. And somebody copies it somewhere else, that's their issue. There is this note about insecurity, but the vast majority of email clients are over secure HTTPS these days. And most of the email infrastructure is sent over secure pipes. So I don't buy that this is actually insecure. It doesn't ring true for me. Okay, then we've got the tutorial. They created a user. Okay, we've got to do. All right, let's get started. So very first thing that we'll need is to go to our Pi project toml. And we want, actually, we don't even need to do that. We don't need to modify that from here. So let's go over here and we'll say uv add Django Sesame. Sesame. Come on, Matt. Django Sesame. Did I spell it right? Yeah. Okay, so we've got this added and we're good here. It doesn't depend on anything. I'm liking this more and more already. Minimal dependencies, great. So at this point, that's added to our virtual environment because that's what UV does on the add operation. So we don't really have to do anything there. I am going to go ahead and get out of my editor here so I can turn on the virtual environment for my editor so I can see this. We will then go back into NeoVim and let's start with, well, I think we're going to have to, is this not an app that we have to install? Let's go back to the, well, the tutorial might be the right place. Boop, boop, boo. I got a form. I'm just scanning for a minute. Sorry, I know I'm jumping around. It's not very easy to follow. Totally get that. Wow. What I was hoping to see was like the install guide. Was it on the main page? Did I just missed it? Oh, it was. So curiously, this is not a Django app that you have to install. It's just like a library. It's pretty cool. So it just plugs into that. I guess they don't have any models that are needed behind the scenes. So we're good there. Okay. So what do I want to do? I guess I want to start with putting this authentication back in. Let's go back to our settings spot, go to the authentication stuff, and here, I'm not going to go totally delete Django all auth yet. And I also want to do this on a separate branch because I don't know how long this is going to take. So let's do, let's call this branch, this will be our Sesame branch to indicate what we're doing. And let's take the backend, copy that, and paste it in here, and delete that. Okay, so now we have our Sesame backend. We should be in good shape there. The next thing to do, I don't want to do the views yet. I want to look at the configuration. Oh, they don't have that in here. All right, let's go back to the user guide, I guess. And also let's open up the API reference. Okay. Changing settings and validates all existing tokens, that's fine. We should probably read through these tokens. These are going to be important. So let's start with that. Go to our section here where we're going to put this, and this will be right here. Django Sesame. So the token name, I guess this is name of the query string parameter containing the authentication token. Oh, this is like what you would put in. I see. So when it comes time, I don't think I want to call this Sesame. I think from like a user interface point of view, that's not gonna look great. So we'll have the sign in, our sign in page will be the one that is the like creates the account and actually sends you the magic link. And then what should we call the other one? I guess we could call it like, we could be truly boring and just call it login. Login with, I kind of want to keep the token. I don't want to use this name. I just think that would just be confusing. But do I call it token? Yeah, let's do that. So I don't know if there's some theory there of why they didn't want to call it token. They wanted to stay away from that for maybe, I bet it would flag like certain security audits. But we're going to use token. Yep. Okay. Possibly hard-coded password. All right. Shut up. Placate. Or whatever this warning is. S105. No QA S105. Yeah, that was predictable. That was my, in case you're wondering, that I use Rough as the tool that's doing a bunch of scans. We can actually even see that in my PyProject TOML file. And if we go down to the bottom, there are the different styles of linting that I have. One of them is Bandit. Bandit is a security checking tool, basically. So the S prefix items, so that 105 was saying like, hey, this looks like it might be a password. So I think that's not a bad thing. Like, it's a good safety check in case you were about to put a password in. Don't do that. But this is not a password. This is like where the password will go. So we're saying ignore that. So the Sesame max age is as a time delta or a number of seconds. So we don't want these things to live around forever. So I don't think that's, we don't want the value of none. Yash, welcome. So changing Doesn't always. Okay, so this is definitely want to change this before we launch this thing. So let's put in a value here. So Sesame max age. Sesame max age. And it said that was, sorry, that was a number of seconds. So we'll do 60 seconds and we'll do it for an hour. I think that's reasonable. 1 hour. So that's how long our links will last if somebody is wanting to log in. Sesame one time. Invalidate tokens. I don't want this. I'm going to leave this to false. You have the token, it's fine. Use it as many times as you want. Like maybe you logged in on your browser and like, oh crap, I actually meant to log in on my phone. I'm not sure why you'd want that, but that's fine. By Sesame invalidate on password change. By default, tokens are invalidated when a user changes their password, but we are not going to have passwords, so this doesn't matter. We could, I'm just going to leave it. It's not going to hurt anything. Sesame invalidate on email change. Oh, now that's a curious one. So if you change your email on your account, should we invalidate the tokens? Well, I don't know that I'm going to be providing a way right now to change this, but I'm going to want to have this one to remember it later in case I get to a future where I do want to change this. So let's paste this in. Whoops. Get out of here. What the heck? What just happened? Oh. Use Control-C. I got a new laptop and it's an Ubuntu machine, so I'm starting to use Control again for copying stuff, so I'm probably going to start making some mistakes between Mac and Ubuntu. So we'll just leave a note. If Journey inbox allows email changes in the future, we may want to change this default. Of course, it's one character too long. If Journey inbox allows, blah, blah, blah. All right, we'll just put on 2 lines, it's fine. Okay. So that's what setting. Name of the field used as a primary key. Primary key for what? For like a different model? What is this? Alternate keys. When generating a token, Django Sesame stores the user's primary key in the token. What? Oh, I guess the token itself is not a secure thing. It's a reversible. Oh yeah, it has to be. The token itself is not like a one-way hash, which makes sense. Like you need to be able to take this token and essentially do some kind of translation on to get back to an ID that is valid, and then say from that ID, okay, we trust this because you had this token. So this is where they're saying let's get that unique state. So I'm going to leave that alone. I think it's totally fine to use the primary key from the user model. This is called PK. It's also, you can also see it. This would be ID on the model, but they are synonyms. Okay, Sesame Packer, dotted path to a built-in or custom packer. Oh, so this is, I guess, if you wanted to make your own specialized token, do that, I suppose. Okay, so there's multiple token formats, and there must be a new one. I'm going to assume is better. But we're just going to leave that as default in case the author ever updates the token thing. We'll get the new format, whatever. Sesame key. Change the value of this setting if you need to invalidate all tokens. Huh. All right. Can leave that alone. Sesame signature size of the signature in bytes. This setting only applies to tokens v2. So it's going to be 10 bytes long. Let's read some of this tokens design stuff in a minute, but let's finish up this last thing. Sesame salt. It's setting to sesame, and we can change it. Oh, only applies to v1 tokens, so I don't think this will even matter. I think it sounds like it's going to use, since we've never done anything with this, so there are no v1 tokens floating out there because we've never used that for this site. We could lock it down to be just v2 tokens by taking off the v1 token generator. But again, I want to leave it open to the default in case there's ever a v3, and we just start taking that. Let's go read up on the tokens, find out what they're about. So it builds a token as follows. Encodes the primary key. There's a timestamp embedded if we have a max age. Okay. Assemble a revocation key. Oh, interesting. And then adds a MAC to prevent tampering. Ah, cool. Primary keys are stored in clear text. If this is concerned, use something different. Revocation key is derived from the password. Well, we're not going to have revocation keys, I don't think, so I don't really care. V1 is the original, still fully supported. V2 is better. No surprise. V2 contains a primary key, optional timestamp, and a signature. Signature covers all this stuff. The signature is Blake2 in keyed mode. I don't know anything about Blake2. Shall we go? What is Blake2? Blake2. The hash. Oh, it's a hash function. Well, how can we run this to a hash function? Won't we lose data? Maybe the keyed mode is like a reversible hash. It's just kind of a scrambling thing. I don't know. Blake2 in keyed mode. Let's search for keyed. Blake2 offers these algorithms tuned to your specific requirements, such as keyed hashing, hashing with a salt, update order. What is keyed hashing? Sorry, 1 second. Let me log in. I'm gonna log in, and it's gonna prompt me for my email, blah blah blah, password. This is what I'm hoping to avoid with this kind of thing. Okay. So what is keyed hashing? The primary purpose of key hashing is to ensure both. Oh man, that's more math than I want to look at, y'all. Sorry. As soon as it starts listing out like XOR operators, kind of like I'm out. Well, I'll at least read this top part. Keyed hashing is a cryptographic technique where a hash function is combined with a secret key to create a message. All right, but what's our coming back to this? What is our it's using our Django secret key. Okay, interesting. So maybe it's kind of adding a little bit of authorization control on the hash. Maybe it's like reversible if you have the secret key, which of course the server does. Igorbiero, I think I talked about this at the beginning. I've talked to the security kind of constraints of this, and I think for my app, I'm happy with what this will mean because of where this token will appear. Like I'm only sending it in emails, and talked about like I think most people who use email use clients that are pretty secure these days because people put a lot of sensitive stuff in there. So that's my philosophy anyway. Okay, so it guarantees that a message has not been tampered with and that it originates from the expected source processing. Keyed hash function takes two inputs, the content and the key, fixed size output called a MAC. This MAC is unique. All right, that's fine, but is it reversible? But I don't understand. Like, this has to be reversible, right? Only someone with a secret key can produce a MAC. So is a keyed hash's return value reversible? Can you get the original content? Okay, so I don't really understand. This detract with what I understood about hashing. Hashing is like this idea where you take a bunch of bytes, you run it through some function, you get something much shorter. Just from a pure information theory point of view, if you have all of these bytes of certain particular orders and you only are left with a small amount, there's no way you can back up. There's not enough information in that small thing to reverse. So when they say that they're using Blake 2, what does that mean? Or maybe it's just the signature that's put. Okay. That's it. So the token is the primary key, a timestamp, and a signature. The signature is put through Blake 2, which uses the secret key. I need to read a little bit more carefully. That's what's going on. And then somehow, I don't know how it picks, like how it combines these things. I don't know if it does a sort of base 64 encoding on the output. No idea like how it gets to, because I can't imagine that the token itself has like the PK embedded in it. Maybe it does. That would be sort of surprising. Okay. Token invalidation, single use, blah, blah, blah. Password change, email change, inactive user. Oh, interesting. So if you go inactive, reject their tokens. That's curious. Okay. Custom primary keys we're not going to use. Safari issues. Well, not going to try and fix that. Sorry. Stateless authentication. Huh. Yeah, I don't want to do anything like here. So I feel like we've gone through this whole page now. There's nothing more to learn from the discussion section, or that I feel like learning right now. We're at the API reference. We have things that we can use for token generation and validation and some other stuff. I don't think there's really much we can do with that for the moment. So that leaves us with the user guide and the tutorial. Okay. Cool. Good. Let's continue. So I think our settings are good. We've got the token name that's going to be for our login view. So when we actually when we do the thing that's going to create the token fragment, so with the, where was it? The get query string, you can see, so this is where they were naming it. So they had Sesame as the name. And so we're going to have something like journeyinbox.com/login with a query string, and it'll say token, and then it'll be the token. So anybody who sees this is going to be like, oh, this is kind of important. Maybe I shouldn't share this. That's my my hope for the psychology of this. So I don't think we need to hook up our sign up view yet. We can just make some straight up tests and get some stuff going. So where do we want this to live? I guess I probably will want, so we're going to keep, there is an accounts app, and that is where the account is created. So every time, let's put them side by side. When somebody, when Did I make a custom user model for this? What? Sorry, y'all. This is like, what is this? Why is this class here? What? I'm confused right now because this is this user model. We're not declaring this anywhere, as far as I can tell. Or what do I mean by that? So there's the ability to make a custom user model, but I didn't think we were doing that. So I don't know what it means to even have this. Or perhaps this is the way that I added fields to the existing user. But I'd have to use the custom user model, and that's, oh, I'm being dumb. Custom user model is going to be in the settings, not the URL. Okay, there probably is a custom user. Okay, I am using a custom user, which I didn't need to, but whatever. So we have a custom user model. So the point of this, what I was trying to get at, is this is the accounts app. This is where we're going to put stuff that's related to users and passwords and all that sort of stuff. So I think I want to hang the views that we're going to use off of this. We already have a couple of views for things related to doing checkout sessions with Stripe, if you actually want to sign up for the service for a longer term, because it is ultimately a paid service. But we'll add in our view. We'll have a view for, we'll call one sign in, and sign in, which will take a request. We'll do that in a little bit. And then our login one is the one that we'll take from Django Sesame, because that's the actual one that does some work. What I didn't see, where does it, maybe it just uses login redirect URL rather than providing some custom option. Because where does it take you? So let's go take a look at the code. I want to dig in a little bit on this view and find out what it uses. So we're going to go to the views, and I don't know what they're doing here. This is some old stuff, or for older things. Log in, redirect to get success URL. Can make a custom using the redirect URL mixin. Ah, there it is. The next page is going to login redirect URL, which is where we want to go. We want to go essentially to the dashboard, and we're using in this app the main route for the app serves two purposes. If we go to, I think this is in the core views, we have this index page, and if you are authenticated, it will show you one page, and if you're not authenticated, it'll show you the other page. So it's doing double duty of being both the marketing page of like, here come try to use the service, but also once you're logged in, the very minimal UI is displayed right there right now. So that will continue. So it's nice that there's really not much. You can see we already have the login redirect URL here, so there's nothing to make there. So here is the place where we're going to do our account creation stuff. And then we'll wire up the login page. In fact, I think we're ready to wire up that login page now. So let's find where the guide went, or the actual name of the page was. This is the, what is this? Quick example. Okay, there's the login view. So we want to go to the root, and we're going to say from sesame.views import login view. Okay, this is going to be in our accounts section. I'm going to have this be the login page, so we'll call this login. And I'm going to change, hey John, welcome. I'm changing some conventions about this app. I started to realize that I don't actually like the slashes. I'm not going to change all these things right now, but you notice that I'm not using the slash on this route. I don't really see enough value in doing that, so I'm going to leave that off. So then we'll do login view. Why is that not? Whatever. And then this is a class-based view, so we have to declare this as view, which will give us a callable that Django can actually use for that. And then we'll give it the name. And I will follow suit there and call it Sesame Login. That would be a good hint to me that this is from the third party, that I didn't actually write this code. And I'm realizing now that this is hard to see because it's almost behind my head. So let me move my little to-do down back behind my back so a little bit more real estate. And then also I will do a little, whoops, I'm typing Vim commands over there. Let's get out of here, put in a comma, and we will do a rotate there. So we got, this is now in a easier to see spot, I hope. Okay, so we've got our new view. There's no reason for me to really test that right now. Yeah, I think, John, I see your question about, is it convention? What's the deal with the slash? I want to say that it's mostly convention. And I want to say the idea was when you have, and this is where it bugs me because it's like so into the semantic weeds, it seems. When you have a slash with nothing following it, it's kind of like the idea of an index page, of there can be multiple of these things. So if you're like classically, if you're like making a Django app and you want to make a blog, and so you'd have a posts page. And so the reason that they'd argue, the people that are big fans of the slash would argue for this, putting that at the end, is an index page of multiple of an item. It kind of like semantically fits better if you include that slash, because it follows along with some of the, like these old web conventions that anything with a slash with nothing after it would be a multiple listing. I think that's the theory behind it. I frankly, just the more I thought about it, the more I don't find that case compelling. The average person on the web does not think about any of that stuff. It doesn't matter. So it just seems like unnecessary line noise to me in the URL. You can get something cleaner if you just drop the slash and just deal with something like that. So that's our login view. The other one that we need is going to be the one that actually does all that work that we have to go create. And that is going to be the sign-in view. So let's do, and notice I'm not taking out any of the all-auth stuff yet. We'll just keep it like this. So we'll have a login and a sign-in. And like I said, that sign-in name, normally I kind of hate that name because what does it mean? Are you signing up or are you logging in? But it's actually kind of both in this case. And ironically, the login thing is the thing that's sort of hidden, that is going to be just in these links. So we'll call this sign in, and we will take the sign in from the other thing that we haven't imported yet, but we will soon, and do name equal sign in. That's what we're going to call this thing. So by the time we're done, we should just have 2 views for this, which I think should be pretty sweet. And then we'll do sign in here. Whoops, not signing, sign in. Okay. So I think we're at a stage where I feel ready to begin designing this. What's going to be important about our sign-in page? It's going to be post only. Well, let's go over that view, and then we'll start talking about this. So let's go over to accounts views. I am certainly not thinking about JWTs. I don't want to touch any of that stuff. We're going to keep this plain and simple. It's going to be a little form that will just take a standard form post and accept an email and do the work. That's the plan here. So let's open up the test views here, and we've put this right at the top. And like the reason I put this at the top is that some of these things I kind of want them to be almost in like a, what is the flow of the app? So the sign in is a very natural thing to have up towards the top. And then if you look at these other things like creating a checkout session and the success page and these things, they follow the sequence. Maybe that's just what I'm telling myself in my head to make this okay, but that's where I'm going with this. So our sign-in page is either going to be so whatever it's going to do, it's going to generate a magic link and send to the user. It will create a user if one doesn't exist. In other words, it's going to be an upsert on a user. So we know, what do we know? We're going to do, what are we going to do? Sorry. Class test sign in. Yep, I spelled that right. Sign in. And I'm going to first start by stealing this only allow post test. Our stuff. The authorization I want to use. So I'm also using Django denied as the package I wrote, and I'm trying to think about how is this view going to be authorized. Was there other any, like that's basically open, right? Hold on, it's been too long since I used my own package. That's embarrassing. I want to go to project URLs and let's go to the about page, which is unauthenticated. Allow. Okay. So the sign in page, anybody should be able to do this. I think the any authorized is like you at least have to be authenticated, is what I think it means. Yeah. And authorized that permits any access, but the limitation was you must be authenticated. So this one will be like, no, anybody can use it. So we want to put here allow, and that comes from Django denied, from denied decorators allow. So Django denied, I guess I haven't really talked to this much, but if Django denied is a package I wrote, and the idea behind it is all view access is denied by default. The benefit of that is that, like, you can have some peace of mind that if you create a new view, and if you don't think about the security of it, it's gonna be like locked down by default, and then you have to fix it. So it just forces you to think like, what kind of access do I want to allow? So that's why you notice this particular test is saying it's forcing a user creation. That's because this any authorized expects to have an authenticated user. But we don't need that. So we're going to delete this line, and then we're going to change this to sign in, and we do expect it to be a 405. It's going to fail right now because I haven't put the decorator on. In fact, it's going to blow up in a weird way because we didn't even return any kind of view response. Yeah, doesn't return HTTP response object, so that was totally expected. But if we go down here now and we say require post as the decorator, this test should now pass because it's not going to get to the body, the implementation of the view. So that's a good test to have on there, so that we're filtering it down, so we're only dealing with post data, so that when comes time to fill out the form, it is acknowledged that it's a form. And then now it's time to like, okay, if we know that it's post data, then we can deal with that here. We don't even need to check that. We don't need to check the HTTP method because the required post is already guarding that. So what do we want to do? So this this form, we expect it to have, and it's been a long time since I've worked with the Django form, honestly, y'all. So the pattern that we want, my brain is like broken with this stuff. Let's go to somewhere. Do I have any forms in this app? I don't think I have any forms. So if we're doing the right thing, we should validate the form. We should make a form class and pass in the data to that and do form validation on it, and it will clean the data and make sure that it's at least a valid email and generate some errors if it's not. If it has errors, we return that back to the same view so that it can be displayed on the UI. And if it does not have errors, we go ahead and proceed with behavior. So Roshan, I am building a simplified sign-in process for my existing app. So I have an app that is a journaling app, and where it uses email and password, and we're switching it so that it will send email links when somebody signs up, so that you don't need a password at all. So let's make a sign-in form. How does that sound? Let's go up here, and we're going to make a new forms file. And so we'll do from Django forms import form class, and we want a no, actually, hold on. We're going to have form fields, so we want to do just from Django import forms. Sorry, it's been a long time. We're going to have our sign-in form, which will be a forms.form, and it will have on it an email field. So that will be forms.email field. And we have that. Since that's not showing me anything helpful in the inbuilt stuff, Roshan, I specifically don't want to use Google OAuth because what I left off in that description of what the app is it's a journaling tool that works with email. So you sign up and you get a daily prompt email, and you respond to that email with like what you want the content of your journal entry for that day to be. It's a way to build up a journal entry, and then from there you get the benefit of with each daily prompt the app takes a random previous entry that you did and feeds it to the prompt. So your daily thing that you get to read is like a reminder of things you did in the past. So that's sort of the function of the application. But the reason I'm not using Google is if I use Google OAuth, then I exclude everybody else who doesn't have a Google email. So that is that there. It is open source. You can absolutely check out all the code. In fact, this particular playlist that I have for this app, I build every single line of code on. Keep doing that. Copy this stuff. Copy. Every single line of this project has been built live on this stream. So here is the repository if you want to go check it out. Karen, how long have I been coding? How long have I been coding? Oh, geez. I started coding when I went to college. I started college in 2002. I guess that's 22 years. Good long time now. John, I'm not going to use model form because I'm not tying this to any particular model. I don't need any like user field or anything like that. I just need a validated email field. So that's why I'm going with the form field there. So let's look up the email field, which should be on the forms area. And what is this buying for us? It basically is going to check, because if at the very least we're going to try and send an email out to somebody that's valid, and we want to not, like, it's important that the deliverability of my emails remain high. So at the very least, we need to clean some of these emails to say like, hey, this doesn't even look like a valid email. So we can't send that out. So we'll have an email field here. I can't remember. I think it is required by default. So yeah. I think our form is going to be super dumb. It's just like literally the singular email field, and I don't even think I need a label. Like the label is going to default to email, which is what I would want. So it's got everything in here. So the process will be, right, usually on these things there's an is valid check on the form, and that's gonna, as soon as we receive the data, we create essentially a form instance, which we'll see. I can do that up here. Let's bring up the account views, and here we can say, what can we say? Let's first import our forms. Oh, come on, LSP. Restart, forms. Okay, this will work in a second. Oh, I didn't save it, no wonder. It doesn't exist. Import sign-in form. Oh, stop. So we know this is a post, so we're gonna say our form is equal to the sign-in form with request dot, well, I know there is post, but is this what they're still calling it? Isn't a recent version of Python change some of this stuff? Am I making that up? Shut up. Or no, they changed like headers? I don't know. Whatever. So then we want to do if form is valid. And then we want to do, gosh, what are the, it has been so long. What is the conventional thing to call here? Wow. We will come back to that. Very simply, Russian, I haven't set that kind of thing up. I've been using Django a long time. I do typically know most of this stuff, but yeah, I've not set it up with NeoVim. I do periodically use it. Like, here we go. I'm going to ask it right now. ChatGPT, in Django, when a form is valid, what is the conventional method to call in the is valid if clause body? Is valid. Process it with what though? No. That's not right. Boo. Save. That's what the people call. Does save make sense? I don't know. Because it's not a model form. So maybe that's why I was thinking use that. So we're going to essentially do, here we're going to do a redirect to the check your email page here. Otherwise, we're going to return back to the same page the view with the error in it. Ooh, that's going to be interesting. Because that is, where's that going to go? Where should this go? I said earlier that I don't want to have a dedicated sign-up page. I want to put this right smack dab on the on like the main index page. And so I suppose I could do a redirect or a return of an HTTP, like, and then like render, I don't know, kind of like something like this, like render the index page, but pass in the form as context. I know this is not the right syntax, but work with me. But I don't, that doesn't feel right. So maybe, maybe this stuff belongs on the index page. Like, why am I making, I'm setting this up as if there's going to be a separate page that I want to go to, but that's not it. Karen, do I ever make a diagram of my code? I do sometimes. In fact, at the start of the stream, which I'm gathering you weren't around for yet, which is fine, I was talking through this entire feature and the implementation and what the plan is here. So just kind of like a sketched out, what are we going to be building? And that's there's not enough here to put into like diagrams. I have on occasion when it's gotten complex. In fact, we can go look at it. There's a mermaid diagram in this app in that docs section. So if you're under GitHub MB Layman Journal, you go to the docs and you check on this. There is a mermaid diagram that I have for the process of working with Stripe. You can see the reason I filled that in is because there's a lot of weird crap that happens with this process that I wanted. It was like 17 different steps and talking to Stripe and talking to the browser, talking to the server. So I wanted to capture all that. So I don't do that all the time, but where it is useful, I will sometimes do it. Anyway, that's that. Okay, so I'm realizing now that this whole sign-in view is stupid. Sometimes you just have to like do these code things and realize this stuff. So let's actually not do any of this. And where we want to put this is with the index page. So we're going to take, because now this is in accounts. Boo. Boo. That is the problem with making an all-powerful index page. It does too much at once. What can you do? So here we've got the simple thing. We're actually going to continue on. I think it's going to be pretty harmless for us. Well, we might have to reconfigure how this is laid out, because some of these will have to allow what happens if you're a post. We're going to have to very quickly differentiate between, are you a post or not? Okay. Let's get going. So let's start to split this out. It's already got the allow stuff on that. That's good. We can get rid of this and get rid of allow now. And I'm going to delete the rest of the sign-in view in a second. We want to now actually do something with this page differently. I want to keep that context. That's going to be important for rendering if there's a failure. So we will say, let's do it kind of after. This just gets kind of hacked up, doesn't it? If, okay, so this is you're not authenticated, that's still right. So if request method is equal to post. This is what I was trying to avoid, but this is unavoidable if we're trying to put the sign up form here. Then we want to take the, we're done with the sign in form. It's an email thing, there's nothing to it. And we want to take the content here and put it underneath now the request form. The challenge with this is what? We may want to have in the context an actual form as well. And so that we can render that appropriately, like a form that's not filled in, not a bound form. So actually, so if you're new to Django, all right, let's get the errors out of the way. I can't find that. Hold on. From journal counts forms import sign-in form. Okay. If you're new to Django, that you may not have seen a lot of these things before. This is called a form, and when you pass in some data, so this request post is going to be the actual like form encoded data, post data, and when you do this, you're doing something you're creating what's called a bound form. You're binding some input data to the form itself, and then so at that point it's bound. If I create a form like this, where it's just a sign-in form that has nothing passed into it, this is an unbound form. So that's something that can be rendered. So what's going to happen though is that at the end of this, when we have the context, so on either side of this, if you get to this bottom stage, we want to update the context so that it has the form inside of it. And there are two pathways through this, and the reason is like if you have an unbound form, that means you have like no errors, there's no nothing. You just want to have the field accessible, the email field that is from the, well, it's not over here now because I closed that forms thing, so that when we call form.email, we can create all the necessary input elements that are going to be expected for our little sign up process. And also, so that's the base case where it's like it's not a post data, and it's just following through and going to the render of the unauthenticated page. Because if it goes to the authenticated page, that's something else. Okay, so but if you were the post data and you bound this, have create a bound form here, and you remember this is valid thing. The last thing it's going to do is do a redirect to some other page if it's successful. So if it falls through this because it was not valid, which is the case where the email was not a valid email, then we still want to send the form, and then we want to be able to, during rendering of the index page, show like, hey, you gave us an email that doesn't look like an email. Can you try something else? So that's why this flow looks like this. So we're sort of splitting it up. There's a little bit of form stuff, and then we have to inject it here. I bet there's probably a way that I could have gone ahead and put it in the context early and not have this local variable and then not be reassigning it. I don't feel like dealing with that. It's fine. So once we have a valid form, we have to do that other work that we said we're going to check, do the, this is going to be the thing that will create the user if it doesn't exist. Wow. Doesn't exist. And also create the magic link and send the email. Actually, no. That is not what we want to do. So at the very, I think what we want to do, the part that's going to be cheap and easy to do is, so performance matters. You want your experience to be as lightning quick as possible. The creation of a user is a commit to the database. That's a very, it's a reasonable thing to do quickly. So we can totally do that if it doesn't exist. But if the actual sending of email, that can be slow because that's an API call to SendGrid, and there's a certain amount of time that takes. And so we don't necessarily want to wait around for that. So we want to actually, so something that we can do that we weren't previously able to do, this came about because I migrated off of Heroku. Now that we have a real background processor, we can do what we can actually do is create a backend job that creates the magic link and sends the email. And that is, so the perceived experience from the user is that they will get that page immediately, and we'll send this backend job. And the backend job, the actual the backend process that we're running is Huey. Huey is checking for new work from the like a queue effectively every second. So within 1 second, the backend job should be picked up, because this backend is not going to be doing a ton of processing, and it will see, oh, I've got a job to process. Oh, I have a user, because we're going to pass in the user as the argument, and so the creation of the magic link can assume that there's always going to be a user to send to, and it will be able to create the magic link and send the email, and that's the job of the job. And then so here, by the time the user has seen the page, they're going to see this page that says, please go check your email for your link to the login, however we're going to word that. And then they can go jump over to their email, and at that point, hopefully, the backend job is already run, already sent the email link, and it should show up within a moment or two from that process. So that's what's going on there. So really, we're going to call, I guess we can call form save. That seems legit, because we're going to be saving a user potentially and kicking off a job. And so this is going to look like form save and redirect. Form save is going to be these two things, and the redirect is going to be the redirect. Okay, but we don't have a form save yet. And what is it complaining about here? It's probably complaining that the type, it thinks it's like a type of ints or something like that. Okay. This context dictionary is going to be complex, so type hint system can shut up. I'm using this is by putting a type hint here of dict, it's saying dict of any. That's the allowed keys. Essentially, I'm opting out of type hinting on something because I know it's going to be something more complex. So we can get rid of all of this sign-in stuff now, and we're not actually going to touch the file at all. So we're down to this one file to work on, and we're pretty close to the setup. Ahmed, thanks for subscribing, appreciate it. The simplest thing we could do right now is create the check your email page. What do we want to call that page? I don't know. It's gonna go. Okay, that's out. Let's repurpose this thing, because it's still kind of the flow. It's just like 1, 2, 3 of the index page is where you start. This check your email page is the thing that goes to, and then the login page is the login page. It will actually do the token validation. So this will be I mean, I could be as literal as check your email. Is that too on the nose? For lack of thinking of something better right now, maybe not your. Let's check email. That's probably okay. That's just going to be a template view that is saying like in your email. Okay, and we can put that template view under the account section. That's reasonable. So we'll call this check email, and then we'll go back to accounts views. So I lied. We're actually going to modify something, and we're still going to use that allow thing, ironically. So because you're not going to be logged in yet. So we'll have an allow decorator, and we'll say allow. This will be check email, and then we'll do request and return render, which takes the request. The template name is going to be accounts check email HTML. That doesn't exist yet. And then a context, which doesn't need anything. So that's what we want to have. So let's go back to that test views page that we had earlier. And actually, you know, hold on. A better test is in the core test views, because I just want to check that this page is accessible. All I care about that it's accessible and it renders. Let's come up here, paste this stuff. Let's do test check email. An authenticated user gets a valid response. That's reasonable. This will be called check email, and it's going to blow up. It's going to say, hey, that template doesn't exist. What are you talking about? Which is totally expected. So we need to make that template. This view is done, although I need to add a description. This is the landing page after someone attempts to sign in. So we've got it documented. We'll go to accounts, templates, accounts, and very important, we go to the plural. The singular is for Django all auth that we're going to get rid of eventually. So we're going to extend from our base. We'll go to check email HTML. We're going to paste this. We'll say, please check your email. We don't need to be that emphatic about it. Don't like that there's no header for there. So let's take actually like this div block and put in some content. Get rid of this. Get rid of most of this stuff. We'll have yeah, this is like a bunch of UI, not a bunch, it's very, very minimal, but we'll say, please check your email. And then we can say, we sent a login link to your email account. Please follow that link, log in. Okay, so the test passes. We can bring up this and actually check it ourselves. The app is now running locally on port 8000, should be. It is. We can go navigate there directly just to check this. So check email, so see how it looks. Please check your email. We sent a login link to your email account. I don't want to say please again. Seems too overly polite. Follow that link to log in. Okay, cool. UI is pretty minimal on this site. There's probably an opportunity to make this fancier, make that look nicer. We will. I think I have an issue that is like polish the UI stuff. Let's check it out. Yeah, like we don't even have a logo yet. We don't really have an authenticated homepage. There's a ton of stuff that we have to do. Email. Oh, this will go away. If email is already in use, like we're just gonna make accounts kind of willy-nilly. So if somebody already has an account, we're just gonna make it, and we're just gonna assume that you typed in the right thing. That does mean that there's the opportunity for junk accounts to get in there, but not prioritizing on fixing that. So actually, I'm gonna go ahead and click this and close it. Not gonna tackle that. Anyway, there's some other stuff in there. So we've got this basic page now. I'm gonna do a little bit of formatting there to clean that up. And let's look at it again. Check email. Okay. Now it's time to go use that. So we're confident that's available. So we want to create the redirect here. So let's do, I believe there's a redirect helper. Return redirect. And I think it takes the reverse like that. So it expects the URL, the location, and this is going to be the location. Okay. I'm going to test this stuff afterwards, partly because I have to. On this app, I do 100% code coverage for everything. So we have to hit this path eventually. So we will test this, but I'm going to wait on some of that first. We need to do the form save bit. I'm not going to mock out the form. So one strategy for testing this could be to like use a mock on the form and make sure form save got called. I'm just going to let it go. Or can I? Because the background, let me think through this. If we do this directly and the form creates the user, then we are going to have this test that will be creating the user, and it's going to try and create that background job. Now, the project settings has testing settings. And the important aspect of the testing settings is that if there's a background job, it's going to run that job because of this parameter right here, this immediate. So it's going to run in memory. And what we're going to do is run through that whole chunk of code. So maybe we don't want to do that. I don't know. I'm debating whether I want to mock that or not. Because if I do this, I'll actually hit a lot of code at once. And it's kind of a way to keep the test simpler, potentially, having that job there. Or I could be like the important elements. We could test the important elements of the form at one go and maybe knock out or skip the actual background job triggering or mock out that piece of it. That's possible. And actually, the interesting part about this is I need to learn how to send background jobs with this system. So I've got some jobs, or actually they're called tasks. Sorry, I've been using the wrong nomenclature. They're called tasks, but the tasks that I've been using so far have been periodic tasks, all of them, because all I did was replicate from what I had from the Heroku system, which was using cron throughout. So I currently don't have any tasks that are meant to be used in the app and triggered by the application on the web serving side to go and queue stuff up in that way. So I have to go learn like what's the right way to do that in Huey, which is the tool I'm using. So let's go to our form. Come on. So I haven't added to my stage yet, so it doesn't know that the form exists. Let's do this. And now we should be able to go to the form, account form. Okay. So we're going to add a save operation. Doesn't need any arguments. And we're going to assume that when this gets called, it's already gone through isValid so that we know that cleaned data is a thing. So let's see, create a user if it doesn't exist, then trigger the magic link job. Probably excessive. Well, I don't know about your comment there. I do find that I'm really wanting to explore some AI tools, and I gotta believe there's. I mean, I've certainly seen the value of having conversational AI about technical subjects, helping me think through things, helping me kind of quickly reference some stuff, those concepts. So it is certainly not without value. I do think it's tends to be a bit overhyped on how much it can actually do for you, how quickly, but it's also possible that I'm just not proficient enough in it yet, and that maybe if I was more proficient enough, or more proficient, then I would speak more highly of it. So we've got the save thing. We've got, we're done with the testing settings here, so we can uncomment this now. It's gonna be fine. And I'm gonna take this and move this up here. And so we've got a reminder of what we need to do in our save. Okay, so should we write, I probably should write the test for this now. Because if we go make test and we run our test, it's gonna complain, we don't have full coverage on everything. I know that to be true. So the stuff that's missing is 31 through 34. So everything inside of here. That makes sense because we haven't done any test that is actually a post onto the index page, but we need to. And when we provide the post, we need to give it some data, and we're not going to get in here unless we provide a valid set of data. So the test that I want to do is a post test. I want to give it I want to basically do like a happy path test for the post, which it's going to get a valid email. It's going to get, so that should return true. It's going to call save, and we should check that it's got a return status code. That's really what I care about, and that it doesn't. Well, no, I think just by the fact that we would be checking for the redirect status code, I'd be confident that it's not hitting line 40. All right, so let's go do that. So we've got this is in the core views. We want to go. I don't like the vertical stacking like that. That's annoying. Let's go core test views, and we've got that over here. We've got our test index page. We want to test the post. As simple as, or let's call it this, test Signin, because that's really what we're after. A little bit more semantically meaningful. We do this. We've got a client. A happy path post redirects to the check email page. We're going to the actual like work of the form of like did it create a user, did it trigger the job, we'll do in a form test. We're not going to try and jam all that stuff into one view test. It's excessive. So we want to have, I think we can do, copy this code, paste it, and that should pass right away. Of course, it's no coverage, no code change there. But we want to switch this to a post, and then we want to say data. I think this is the way to use this client properly. So we want to post that data, and so we need to give it a valid set of data, and we want to say email, and we'll just use a boring email address that is like test@testing.com, like so. And I would think if this worked correctly, and assuming I got the convention right for calling post, we should get a failed test, because we won't get a 200. We'll get an actual redirect, because I think everything about that setup right now is going to follow this path, or it should. Yep, good. So we're hitting the redirect. We're getting it to the URL that we expect, the check email. So I'm happy with this. This is exactly the test that I wanted to run. And at this point, that should be full coverage, because those are all the lines that we're missing. Certainly not complete testing, but it's testing that's good enough for the view. Now, note, I have done nothing on the actual template. So all of this stuff is like kind of a subcutaneous test, where it's happening below the surface of the actual application. It's not at the UI layer. I'm not testing the forms. A more exhaustive, albeit slower test would be to use something that actually tries to go to the form, finds the form on the page, fills it in with an email, makes sure that it does a post there, and does all that. I don't need to do that, because I don't feel like that is a necessary level of testing, because when I design that chunk of UI, I'll actually be running it and trying it out myself. And I find that sometimes that level of UI validation is plenty for having the satisfaction of knowing what's working. I'm not changing these HTML forms often, so I don't think it's a big deal. And in the event that I do change it, I probably would go test it again. So I'm pretty okay with that. Okay, so where else did I say we need to go? Let's follow the path where we keep doing the backend work for now, and creating a user. Let's see if we can do that. So where are we going to go? We need two different things up now. We need the account forms, and we need to create a new. We'll go over to accounts, and we'll go to test views for initially, and then we'll go up, and we'll create a new file of test forms.py. And in here, we want to create a class for test sign in form. That's what we're after. So we will have our test, and the test will be what cases do we have? Maybe like that's useful to trigger those first. So we want a test for creates user, or I'm not just gonna say it. Test create user. I don't need to say creates as a ongoing thing. And then we'll give it a docstring, an email, a non-existing email creates a new user record. That's what we want. Test existing user. An existing user is fetched if the email already has a user account. That's really poorly worded. But you get the idea. And then we want to say triggers sign in link job. Stop using job, Matt. It's task. a task is a task. I don't want it to be the passive. How do I phrase that? I already used passive up here, didn't I? Yeah, I said that so poorly. I'm gonna reword. Like these doc strings, they don't seem that important, I guess. But when you're coming back to them later, you want to be able to very concisely, like, what is this test about? And sometimes the test name is enough, but I have found, as someone who has worked on apps solo for a long time, that these tests, just documentation strings, actually become vitally important later on. When you're trying to figure out when something breaks or something weird happens, like, what were they trying to test here? So let's say I see a typo. So when a user account exists for an email, use that user. Yeah, that's much more concise. And the way that I'm actually writing these doc strings is assertive about the state of the world as I want it to be. You notice I'm not saying, what am I not saying? Test that the user, like whatever. It doesn't look like this format. And I actually picked up this tip a long time ago, and I finally remember his name consistently here. So Jono Lang testing. Jono Lang. Why is it when Jono Lang test docstring? I learned a lot from this. So this is a short little post. I think it's a good one though. And Jonah has some advice of like, what are you trying to convey in a test? Like a test name is actually important. And like when you extract all the fluff words that aren't really telling you anything, have you said anything meaningful? So he's saying like, this is like the worst one where it's saying test that and parsed correctly. And so first thing he says, like, it's a test. You don't need to say test that. That's redundant. So input is parsed correctly. And it's not should, so make it imperative. Like, this is the state. It's like, so this gets you a little bit more crisp. And then correctly, properly, as we expect, they're redundant. That's cool. And then look, like you're left with input is parsed. So at that point, he's like saying, is this meaningful enough? Or are you actually testing? So then he gets saying to, here's what you actually should have said as for this test in this case. So I at least took it down to let's take out the fluff words and like have something very clear. Whether you go back and make it very exhaustive is your choice. Okay, so let's see. We want to change this to be the magic link job buyers. Yeah. I think that's what we want. All right, so testing forms is actually pretty easy in some sense, and they're nice and concise. They're very clear. So you can make a form and you can create that bound data scenario. Then you call is valid on it, and is valid will return a result back, a Boolean that you can check. So I guess we also, that reminds me, we need a failure case here. So let's put in a failure case. Test invalid email, and invalid email is rejected. Okay. So let's go through these. In fact, it might be easiest to start with the email, the invalid one, to see what that's like. So we'll say our data. So the thing we're going to use consistently is that we're going to bind data to the form and then call it is valid on that. So we want to have email And then we're going to put in some junk. So in fact, so I think the minimum requirement is you need an @ sign somewhere in these things. So we're just going to put in not an email as a string that I think should not be a valid email. And then we'll say form is equal to the sign-in form. And we can bind that data like so. So then we'd say is valid, and we want to do form is valid to call that. So we know, or we're hoping that this is not valid. So assert not is valid. And then we also want to assert on the message that's in the form errors. So we want to assert that some string, but I don't know what the string is going to be yet. Some string is in form dot email errors, I think. I might be wrong on that. So this is the part of the test that we're going to see what's right and wrong. Okay, form. So because we got to that assert, we at least know the stuff above that was correct. So we set that up properly. So form dot, gosh, Matt, where are the fields? I thought sign-in form object has no attribute email. Huh? Isn't that like right here? Email? Is it fields? It's like a dictionary. Sorry, it's been a while since I've done these. So error, something like that. No. Email field's not iterable. Okay. Come on. What's in here? What's the dir of form fields email? Or is it on the bound data? I don't know. It's been too long. So, okay, it is a form field. There's a bunch of stuff on it. I don't think that's the area we want to go, though. Or error messages? Error messages? Ah. Oh, wait a minute. That doesn't look right. I definitely gave an email field in the data. Did I call this wrong? Like I said, it's been a while. So let's go look at some of my form tests that I have over in the homeschool app, because I know I've got plenty of these. So let's look at one and see, what am I doing wrong? I think I need to say data equal data. That might be it. The keyword argument, it might not be the first argument. Might have been passing to the wrong thing. This is a form. We've got the model form though, but that should be fine. How am I testing form non-field errors, but I want a field error? Come on. There's gotta be regular field error in here. Print form non-field errors. Let's see what it shows. Well, that's simply not true. I have I have a value in there. So it's definitely called email. This is, you can see it's not a crazy setup, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, because there should be data. What if we try and like pass it? Let's say change it for a moment. Say like, because if it's complaining that it's like not that it's required, but it's not complaining. So like, let's try test at testing.com. That should be valid. Okay, so it's just giving me a weird error message. That is not meaningful. Okay, let's go back to ChatGPT. In a Django form, how do you get the field specific errors inside of in Python code? Oh, errors. Yeah. Okay, I'm just being dumb. It's been like I said, it's been too long since I've done this. So let's see. Now, if it says though the field is required, when we change it back to this, then we got a problem. So we know it's not that. Is there more than one? That's just wrong. It should be a validation. I feel like it should be a validation error that shows, hey, this is not a valid email. Not, hey, this is a, here it is. Okay, it is in there. I was looking in the wrong spot. So it printed it out as HTML. Okay. Cool. All right. So that's better. So if we switch this to form errors, what are we going to get? Some string. Okay, so form errors. We should be able to index into email. All right, and then it's the first entry. All right. So let's look for, we look for the whole thing. I don't know. Valid email. Okay. That seems fine. What are you complaining about? None is not subscriptable. Shut up. My linter is like no good at figuring this one out. Okay. Well, how far do I want to go with this? This is already 11. Let's do, I don't know if we're going to get all the way to the job. We could maybe get to the triggering of a job, but maybe not the body of the job function. Let's try that. Or I'll keep going for a little bit longer, then maybe I'll just run out of gas. So we've got a non-existing email creates a new record. So that's, we want to check, let's take all this stuff. Whoops. And put it up here. This time we want to do, see, new user at somewhere.com. We want to assert that this is valid. Right now that should pass, and it does, but it doesn't actually create anything. So we want to assert, we want to go get the user model, and we'll import the user model. And we want to assert that let's pull this out. So put that there, append email and change this to email. It's just local variable. And we want to find that the user count is 1. Assert that user.objects.filter email equal email, because that's a field that's on the user record. The count of that is equal to 1. And it's going to fail. It's saying like, nope, there is no such user right now. So this is the test that we want to make pass. So we're going to do essentially at this point a get or create. We can go over to Django and we can look for, just because I never remember exactly how to use it, get or create is the function that we're looking for off the model reference. Get or create. So it's essentially following this pattern where if the person doesn't exist, we want to create a person with all of these attributes. We have to pass in defaults. So here's an example. The defaults is like what happens if that person doesn't exist. And these are the keys that we're trying to like look that person up from. Okay. So really what we're kind of after is over here, we want to create a user, say created, and we want to say user.objects.get or create. Now, there's probably going to be fields that we do not have that we're going to have to like make up. All we care about in our setup is that the email is set. Password doesn't matter. None of that other stuff matters. So we can do get or create, and I want to pass in the absolute bare minimum to make this pass. So we can do email, and we know that this save, I'm only going to call this when after is valid has been called. That is like the precondition of the reason. It's just the convention with save. You can just make the assumption that that has been the case. So we'll pull out the email from self.cleaned data. Should be an email field that again will only be populated with a valid email if we went through the form validator. So we're going to say get or create email. Now I'm going to try to do just that, and I have a feeling it's going to say no, you cannot do that. So we've got that much, and we want to check that this now exists. Okay. So what happened? It's saying it still doesn't exist, but it didn't blow up in our face. That's kind of surprising. I was actually hoping that it would fail, saying you did not actually do anything. So print user and created. What are these variables afterwards? What? Where are we? Oh. I'm being dumb. You have to actually call save, right? So valid is the first condition, and so that's actually the precondition here. And then we want to do form.save. So it helps when you call the thing. And it's complaining that I don't have a user. That's my fault. So from models, import user. Save now. Ooh, look, that's all we needed. What was the password? Or what was the password hash? Like, what did it put in there? I don't know. That's curious. Let's do, I want to see, we can only see the printed out output if the test fails. So true. What? Why is there no user record? What? Print user was, let's see, type user, and then user. Why is that coming out with like no representation? What? See this? Like user was this type, but where's the value? Why is there no repr at all? That's weird. Let's do user email, username, user password. User email. Maybe it's I think that the definition, let's go to the abstract user definition. So this is probably going to be a problem because check this out. We have unique is true. So we didn't give it a username. So the second we have a second user, it's probably going to blow up. Be like, hey, you've got two users that have the username of nothing. So I think we're going to need to fill that in with a value. We'll probably, because this will never, famous last words. It is very unlikely that I will ever display this username to the user. I think what I'm going to do is put in a UUID in there, just as something that's pretty much guaranteed to be random. And then I guess the password field wasn't anything. That's coming from something else. Let's check out the abstract base user. Oh, there's a password field. But it doesn't really store that. It's just storing. I don't know what it's storing here. What do you store when you didn't provide a password? Don't know, man. Let's ask ChatGPT. Maybe it knows. In the Django user model, if you create a user object with no password, what does Django store? Okay, it's impossible to authenticate. All right, that's fine. That's surprising. I figured it would put like some unusable hash, but whatever. It seems like that's good enough for our purposes. So I do want a username. So in fact, there's probably a scenario here where I watch this. Let's try calling save again. Well, no, now it's going to do a get or create. So let's create a user with a different email, but no username. So if we do user.objects.create and we give it email is equal to something else at somewhere.com, I'm hoping that we'll get a uniqueness error. Yeah, okay. Cool. I don't want to keep this in the code. I think that would be confusing for this test. Maybe I should. Check the username uniqueness constraint. I'm forcing this test to do a little bit more than we want it to do by doing this, but it's okay. So we'll say we're going to do import UUID, and then we're going to do username equals stir UUID UUID4. That we're about to make a mistake. So it was going to create this would have created, because remember we haven't used the defaults aspect of this. So this would be like, look up a user. This would create a new user every time you logged in. Oh, that would have been so gnarly. Okay, so let's do this. This test is going to get a little more interesting. Ensure only one account is created. Watch. I think what's going to happen is that this number is going to be 2. Oh, okay. Blocking the... It is valid. This is going to be 2. Yep. And the reason for that is because I use the get or create, but then I didn't use the defaults thing. So it's taking both the email and the username and trying to find a unique user from that combination. But in that process, it's creating a UUID4, which in and of itself is like pretty much guaranteed to always be unique. That's not a set guarantee for everything, but in almost all circumstances it would be. So what we have to do is we have to put this in defaults, and so that we're only looking up based off of the email key. So this is what we really need, is to put this in as defaults down here. Create this defaults dictionary. So let's do that. We'll do defaults is equal to a dictionary that has this username like so, and close that off. So now we've got, now what we're saying is look up the user by email if you can. If they're not there, create a user with that email, and then for the username field, give it a UUID4. So our test is a little bit more complicated, but now we've validated, not only did we make sure that the uniqueness constraint was observed on the username field, which was important, but also that we don't create multiple users by accident. So that's the test. And I tried, hopefully the comments there give enough clarity on why that is. And it will certainly explain to me why I would call save twice. Okay, so now we want virtually the same test. So I'm going to take all this code. In fact, I'm going to even keep the user, because that's going to be useful for this. Is it? Because we don't care. Well, it's fine. I've got a user factory, which I could make a more realistic user, but this will be sufficient. So we'll have, we'll change this to test@testing.com. We'll get rid of the email field. Now we will use the user object, keep a reference to it, and we'll do user.email to the data, so that we're testing it with this thing. And so now when we go in, we don't need to call this twice. We will want to assert that it's valid. That will almost certainly be the case, but we also want to check that there's only one of them. So the difference between the previous test is the emails were different, right? It was like something else at somewhere.com versus new user at somewhere.com. So that's the only real difference between the two tests. And the test passes. Cool. Okay, let's get rid of these print statements. Those aren't doing anything good for us here. We don't really care about this created attribute, so we're going to use an underscore. We do care about the user because we want to do that with the background job that we're going to trigger. So how are we going to trigger a background job, and how are we going to know that we triggered a background job? That's That's interesting. How are we going to know? Well, we know that. So I think we're going to add more unit tests for the background job itself. We're definitely not going to do that tonight. I'm running out of gas, but for this, what we can at least assert on is we know that the testing configuration for the test is to run the background jobs immediately, so we can test the outbox, the email outbox, and see if there's an email put there. That would be the case. So we're actually going to probably commit this code with a broken test because we're not going to fill out the body of this background job, but that's where we'll go. So let's make our background job pretty quickly. We have already got a test file, so we want to do a new task, and this is going to be not a periodic task. We'll just put this after, it's fine. So we'll create a new one. We'll call this generate magic link. And importantly, let's go reference the this code now. Notice here that this get query string stuff, it expects you to pass in a user object. So we will have to do a lookup, and that'll actually be a good little safety check, just in case for some reason I don't know how the job would ever get triggered without a user, but that'll be a good thing to have. So we're going to have QE is the thing we need to reference. So QE, let's go take a look over there and see how a task is actually called and all of that. So here's a task. We use this Huey.task. I want to make sure that we're using the right thing for Django stuff. I don't like this table of contents. There is a Django extension, and there were some things that we had to do if we wanted to use a particular, like with a database connection or something like that. So let's make sure we do this right. So we've got Django. I know I configured all that stuff right, but I'm really more interested in creating the tasks. Those periodic tasks, why did I use DB periodic task? What was the difference? Tasks that execute queries. Okay. If you plan, so I don't know why you, like in almost every scenario, you're going to interact with the database because that's your persistence store. So it's kind of shocking to me that you could have tasks that don't use the database. But here you go. If you plan on executing queries inside your task, it is a good idea to close the connection once your task finishes. To make this easier, Huey provides a special decorator that closes the connection for you. So we need to use DB task instead of just task. Okay, fine enough. So DB task, we're going to add that to our generate magic link as a decorator. So DB task. And we want, so this is going to be the argument to this is the user ID. So the flow, let's see, generate magic link and send email. This is enough to like that. This alone we can test on. It's not, our test is going to fail, but we can actually let this code run, I think. So we want to say the things we're going to do as like kind of to-dos for next time. Fetch the user, generate the magic link, and then send the magic link email. That's what's gonna go on with this. And then because of this sending the magic link email, that's when we can check the outbox. So our test here will be assert that the outbox has one email in it to the right email address. Okay. That's all well and good. Then the thing that we still need to add to our form is to actually use that job now. Now this is where, like, how do we use these things? Do we just call it like a function? Is that how that works? Oh, interesting. The Huey Django extension provides a helper for when you need to ensure the active transaction has committed before enqueuing your task. This is probably important because it's possible that okay, no, it's not. No. I was about to say, there's a feature you can do atomic commits with some Django views. And so you can see how this whole view has transaction atomic across the top, which means that any database work that happens inside that view is kind of put into a pending set and then committed as one big action at the end. So because of that, this code would cause a problem, because what could happen is this do work thing is going to enqueue with an ID that has maybe not been persisted yet. And that means that you suddenly create a situation where you could have a database race where the view is still going to try to commit to your database, but on the other side, the periodic task could be like, get the work and try and do the work before your view has committed. So if your action is to create a user, which ours actually is, so this is actually maybe pertinent, would have been pertinent, then you could run into this problem where your user doesn't exist yet by the time the periodic task is actually started and runs. It'd be weird timing, but it is possible. So it's called a data race. That's not going to be a problem for us here because we're not using an atomic transaction for this view. We actually have, and I want to say the default. Let me see if I can find the settings. So let's go to settings. Here. Let's see. Atomic. Oh, come on. Just search for atomic. Atomic requests. I can never remember what it's called. So atomic requests, you can see it defaults to false. And the atomic request idea is like, you know how we saw in that example of transaction atomic added to the top of the view? Atomic request treats every view like that. So they always have all of the work is done as one activity. This is actually set off by default on Django because having that on can lead to contentious situations where you're actually, in the attempt to do something in a bunch of transactions, you essentially get a lock to this table and that table and that table, and all that stuff creates contention in the system and actually slows requests down. So Django gives you the option of saying, and actually prefers this option of defaulting to false. You get some better safety guarantees if you wrap all your stuff in transactions. Everything happens as one unit. There is some safety benefit to that, but it comes at a cost of performance. Because I'm using atomic requests set to false, it means that by the time my code is running and we do this get or create, each interaction that is going to do actual database operations, like in this case, a modifying database state, is allowed to immediately transact and commit before proceeding. So by the time that this background job stuff will get kicked off, the user should definitely exist at that point. So here in our case, we should be able to do work without needing any stuff. So you can see they've got this like little wrapper thing here. We don't need to do this on commit task. Yeah, that's just unnecessary for our scenario because of how we've got Django configured. So I think we're safe to call generate magic link. And I think the curious part of like I said, this is the first time that I'm using the actual task processes. So what appears to be a function call is not actually a function call when the application is running for real. Now, because of the mode that I have with the project settings, the testing settings and that immediate thing that I was mentioning earlier, this immediate true does mean that it would essentially be just a function call. Might be a little bit of a wrapper in there before it gets called, but it's going to call it directly. But when it's running in a minute later, we will have it so it actually gets sent off to the Huey worker to do that work. So I think what we need to do is do this from tasks, import generate magic link, and then we call generate magic link with user.id. This is probably return some kind of result, and we can print out the type of the result. It should be not, although we have not returned anything, I think it should return an actual result type. So let's try, see what happens. We don't have anything that fail. There's nothing to see. Yeah, you can see that it returned a task wrapper rather than returning none. So that does give you the clue that, hey, wait a minute, like there's definitely no return here. Implicit, what that means in Python is implicitly, that means you're returning none. But the fact that we saw not a none here, because if it was truly none, you would have seen something like none type in the output. But we didn't see that. So we saw the task wrappers. There's something magical going on here that Huey is doing, and it's happening because of this decorator. If you're wondering, like, what is causing that? The decorator is definitely doing some stuff to this particular function, so that it's not just a pure function. This actually becomes a trigger, which is kind of nice. Like if you have worked with celery, the way celery works. So let's imagine for a moment that this is pointing at the screen, like you could see where my hand was going. It's stupid. This portion right here, you can imagine that this was a celery task. So pretend it's not a Huey task. In celery, what you do to actually trigger tasks is you do something like generate magic link dot delay is a way to signal, hey, this is not a real function that you're calling, but Huey just says, yeah, make it look like a function call. It's fine. So we don't want to do anything with the result. The whole point of it is to get the benefit of being asynchronous. So we're going to let that kick off to the background, and that's it. So here we will do this. We aren't going to do anything. These are all to-dos. To do here, to do here. I am not going to write this test yet, so we'll do this as a to-do as well. In fact, I'm going to switch these because are there other to-dos in the system? There might be. Yep, there are other to-dos in the system. So let's not call it to-do. Oh, come on, Matt. Let's use fix me instead. Fix me is usually a good, clear indicator for me that this is not ready to go in. Whereas to do is like, this could be a long-term thing. Okay, let's make sure everything passes and that we've got good coverage for now. We should. I think everything has been tested. Oh no. Well, what happened? Attempting to register a task with the same identifier as an existing task. What? Same identifier as an existing task. Huh? I don't know why this is. Let's go ask ChatGPT maybe. What does this Huey error mean? I mean, I can read what it says, and I can kind of get it, but we didn't do any registration, so yeah. Being registered multiple times. Oh, you have to give a name? Maybe okay. Really? Does it have a name attribute? I figured it would just like take the name for the function. Or is ChatGPT hallucinating here? All right, let's go look at tasks. Yeah, John, they better be reusable. I can't imagine that they wouldn't be. There's also the possibility that something about the test setup is causing this. That's a real possible case. Yeah, like notice it's doesn't seem to have any problem creating multiple tasks. But we can go look a little closer, I guess. Scheduling tasks. Oh, that's for like scheduling for the future. There is a name. If not provided, Huey will default to using the module name plus the function name. Well, okay. That's dumb, right? I mean, that's very sensible. Is it because... What is happening? Huey... We've got... So these two tasks are definitely like the ones at play. What? I bet. Let's try this. Huh. So attempting to register a task with the same identifier, specify a different name. Well, that's weird. All right, let's try Google PyTest Django Huey register duplicate task name. I got rid of... So one of the things I was trying to rule out is like, is it because there are two? Like, it was a complaining because like maybe each time a test ran, it was registering again and again. And there's only one call here. Oh, this is the one that does multiple calls. All right, let's try... Try commenting out this one. Huh. Okay. What if we do... and only try one time? Test existing... Okay, so here we go. We've got test create user would have gone first. So there's a registry somewhere that we need to clear out between tests. And also, oh gosh, what? There's like, even in that singular test, you can't call the task more than once. that seems pretty stinking broken. Like, we should be able to watch. If we comment out this test and then comment out this line, this test will pass. Okay. But then if we uncomment this line and run the task more than once, it registers with the same identifier. Attempting to register a... Okay, well, does this mean like a task or a task execution? I would think that it would imply to me that a registration would be just a one-time event, right? So what is calling? So if we follow this, we're seeing like inside of save, it's calling generate magic link, which is a decorator around this stuff, the task wrapper, and then we get into GUI API 822. All right, let's go take a look. I didn't think we were going to do any like third-party source diving today, but okay, here we go. GUI, and we want to look at API, and we want to look at 822. So when it's creating it, okay, remember the task wrapper. Isn't that what we saw when we ran? When we printed out the result? Wasn't that a task wrapper or was it a test result? I don't remember. Try it again. Let's go find it. So let's comment this out. Let's restore. Nope, not that one. Go to the place where the form was, and we want to get the result and print the result type. I'm pretty sure it was a task wrapper, but I want to confirm. Task wrapper. Okay. So does the task wrapper okay, I'm puzzled. 822. Right, I want to see the error again. So it goes into register and it goes and says, hey, you're already in here. But I'm so confused. I'm like, why is it doing this? Wouldn't it call a task wrapper every time you create one of these things? Like what's the path? It's GUI API 178. So let's go to look at 178. Well, really? We're going into so save is in the decorator. I think I need to start all the way from the beginning. So let's make sure we have a full understanding. We're going to look at DJ Huey init 145. trib DJ Huey knit 145. We're creating a task. It's the Huey task. What I don't understand is the wrapper, is the decorator being called more than once? Yeah, I'll give that a shot, John. Let's see what happens. I suspect it's going to be the same thing, but it's worth checking out just in case it's something simple like that. So let's do name equal foobar. Oh, you got to be kidding me! What is up with that? Trash. Trash. I cannot believe that pass. Oh, see it. It's not the name thing. Something else. It's very subtle. Let's go here, make sure, and see if you can see it when I get there. Yep. What I'm missing? Boom. The parentheses. Man, that is tricky. So I called it with a decorator like this. I didn't use parentheses to invoke it. Has to be invoked. Pretty positive that's it. So I'm going to try it without the name attribute. Yep. Dang. Dang, that is subtle. Okay. So what was it doing before? Before, I don't even, decorate, I don't know. I don't know that I want to think through that. Yeah. So it's supposed to invoke this once. And then then the function gets passed in as an argument to the function wrapper that results from this. But because we didn't call this function got passed into the argument to this thing without the call. It gets so confusing. So don't worry about it, I guess, is the result, is what the takeaway I want to take from this. I'm interested now, because we did this, did I get the type wrong? Maybe it's not a task wrapper. So let's go back to the form, and it might still be a task wrapper, but I'm not sure. I'm curious if it's some other type. So let's do result equals this, and let's print type result and see what we get. It's an API result. It's not a task wrapper. So it should have been assigned to us that it was a task wrapper that, which logically makes sense. Like I was thinking maybe a task meant like an invocation, an instantiation of a particular task function, but that's not right. So now we've got evidence that the thing you should get is a result type. Okay. Well, cool. That was a good little exploration there. Let's try running the test again, see where we're at. And back to 100% coverage. Do me a favor if you could, leave a like or a comment or something on the stream. That would really help other people discover this. What we're going to do for the last few minutes here is do a quick little review of the diff, then talk about what's coming up next, and then we'll wrap it up for the evening, because I've been going for nearly 3 hours and getting pretty tired. So we first covered the design of the sign-up flow that we're going to do. Pretty simple sign-up flow. We want no passwords. We're going to do email sign-up. We're biasing towards email sign-up because it's an email-based product. So it's very natural fit for that. I've already gone through the security implications. You can check out the earlier part of the stream if you're coming in later. We've got our new form that does very little. It has just an email field. That'll be the only thing that you need on the form, and the only thing that's required is that it be a valid email. And what it's going to do is it's going to create an object. We did notice that we had to satisfy the uniqueness constraint of username. And then Huey is actually kind of makes this look magical, but this will be an invocation that will generate a background job that will make the magic link and actually send out the email that will then allow a user to type in something. The benefit of doing it this way is speed. This save process, the actual queuing of a magic link is essentially just a persistence to the queue database table that we're using, a SQLite table, and that'll be pretty fast. So the redirect in the page will show up to the user of, hey, go check your email. And by the time they actually do that, which should take them, most human beings, at least a few seconds, there should have been time for the background job to pick up the work and actually send it out. So that's what's happening there. We've got the unfinished work here of actually generating the magic link. Notice we did not send across the user. That's important. The data that you have to send across in background tasks needs to be serializable. The fact that it's serializable is what makes it so that the queue can just pick up that data. If we instead tried to pass in the actual user instance, then that is not serializable data. I mean, maybe it's possible that Huey could use Pickle, Python Pickle, to do this. Don't rely on that. Don't trust that kind of stuff. Pickle has all sorts of negative consequences to it. Versioning. I mean, there's a bunch of reasons you don't want to use Pickle. So you want to use serializable data, which effectively means that any input parameter any input argument that you give to a background job should be basic data types that are very serializable, like without much extra work. So integers, strings, booleans, those very primitive basic types that are common to Python. No custom class types, nothing like that. That's where you're going to run into problems. So we've got our database task. Something I learned tonight is you really have to be careful and make sure you call that, use the parentheses there. Everything needs to be invoked in order to create that properly. We will then, because it's serialized, we have the ID. We will look up, the first action will be just to do a fetch of the user, just a get, then generate the link based off that user, and then actually do the sendings. We have to make that email template. We're going to keep it pretty basic. We have our actual form where we tested a bunch of stuff, and this test ended up becoming a little bit more complicated than I wanted to. I thought it was going to be pretty simple, but in order to make sure that we got get or create right and we validated the uniqueness, we put some extra attribute checking in there. So those are some of our tests, and we'll get back to this this test on the outbox later. Then we have this very basic test of our check email page is just that, just a page. There's nothing to it, so nothing to keep in there. And that is just a template render view. We are asserting that our post does the 302, so we've got confidence, at least, that the index page does what we expect. There's still some template design work that we have to do to actually integrate this. That will come up. In fact, I'm going to make a note about what's left because it's fresh in my brain now, but it won't be later. So let's go here and say, like, give ourselves a little list of to-do things. So we want to do the index template form. We want to implement the generate magic link task and test that task. And so those are the primary things. There is also, so thinking through this, that would probably be enough to deploy that amount of work. So we could, but I think before we do that, I think we can remove Django all auth. I like all auth generally. It's a great project, especially if you want to do. Somebody earlier in the stream mentioned, am I using Google OAuth and stuff? Django all auth would be a good tool for that. But because I want to be able for the site to be used by anybody with an email client, regardless of whether you're using Google or whatever, I'm just sticking with basic email signup. That's the most flexible from my perspective. So I think those are the things that we need in order to make this flow work. There's a couple other things. We can remove the I'm forgetting a bunch of things actually. Remove the login page and sign up page. Remove the custom Django all auth templates that we built. Those aren't going to be needed. We also want to extend, I mentioned this at the very beginning of the stream, we want to extend the Django session to 365 days so people don't have to log in a bunch of times. That's an important element. Because if you have to do this process multiple times, it is a bit of friction to log in via email. That is true. The reality, though, is because email sending and deliverability was so vital for this app, even in that flow where I had the username and email password combo, I still forced a verification email check. That was work that I did. It was work where you'd have to go click a link and you wouldn't get logged in until you clicked the verification stuff. So we're kind of keeping that step anyway in some spirit. But by making it a 365-day login, then there's really not much to worry about. We'll have configured Django Sesame, I think, for every configuration that we need. So there's nothing else to do there. So I think that this represents all of the work that we have. So let's review. Let's take one last second to review the rest of the diff, make sure we got everything. We did the update to the index page to actually handle the form posting. And then here's our settings modification and the addition of our URLs to the main app along with Django Sesame. All right, that's everything. So I will put this up. In fact, do I have Hub installed? I don't think I do. Shoot. I will push up a branch. Let's do, what should we call this? Start the sign in form and background job. And then we want to do a git push to, what's the remotes that I have set up here? Remote -v. Okay, we've got the origin. So git push origin Sesame. I think that's what we want. And if we go over here, it should be a prompt to create a pull request. I try and do this so that y'all can take a look at this code if you want to. So we'll call this whole flow simple sign in and sign up. And it's going to fix an issue number 245. Not yet though. I think we're gonna deploy this. I could do like a feature flag and all that sort of stuff. I don't want to. This app is not complex enough that needs feature flags. But here's the code. Funny that I spent 3 hours to do 177 lines of code. That's just how it goes though. Hopefully, like most of that ends up being teaching and talking to y'all. So with that, say thank you for joining in this evening. Again, try and please, if you would, hit the like button, smash the like button, as they say. And if you want to catch up with me in other ways, you can. I have mattlehman.com. There's a whole book that I've written on Django. If you want to read it, it's free online if you want to read. If you want a print copy, you can go buy one of those too. You can support me on Patreon as patreon.com/mblehman, or support me on YouTube. Leave a, I don't know, what do they have, the little, I don't know, there's some title of little ways you can do financial gifts if that's your thing. Thank you very much for joining in, and I'll see you next time. Take care.